You're listening to the Cat Breeder Sensei Says podcast, the show that supports the reputable breeding of pedigree cats. This is your host, April Catito, and in this episode we'll be talking about starting your own cattery. If I browse the internet and visit websites of breeders of pedigree cats, the story of how they got started is relatively similar. Usually they start with a pet of a certain breed and then absolutely fall in love with the personality and characteristics of this breed. And then the idea to pursue breeding this cat comes into play. The problem, or should I say the challenge, is there's no information online readily available that'll help you get started or even help you grasp the concept of what's involved in owning and operating a successful cattery. In my early days, when I first started thinking about a cattery, I had a visit from a very experienced 25 plus year breeder that I had befriended at the cat show. She came by to see where I was planning on having my stud live. On her way back to her car, she asked me, "What are the goals of your cattery?" I came up with the most ridiculous answer I believe I've ever said. I'm not even going to repeat it. But she said, "No, that is not the goals of any cattery. The goals of every cattery should be health, temperament, and type, in that order." That was a profound moment for me because that led me on the researching path. What did she mean by that? Well, then I quickly discovered what she meant by that. The health of your cats and the kittens that you produce are the essential part of every breeder's responsibility. Every pedigree cat comes with its set of health problems, that's for sure. And we can certainly do DNA testing and health screening to try to prevent the issues. Even with 2 copies of negative DNA genetic markers from parents, there's no guarantee that that cat will not develop that particular disease. Do your research and know your cat inside and out. Know the health risk in that breed. Know what to look for, what the signs are, what age these problems develop, if there are genetic markers for them at all, and what you can do to try to prevent that. What happens if you get a cat in your cattery that develops one of these problems? What are you supposed to do with it? What if the kittens get it? These are all things that need to be researched so that you can strive to produce happy and healthy kittens for your pet owners. The temperament in your kitties is certainly passed down to their babies, primarily from the queen. You want to choose cats that are social and friendly so that they pass that temperament down to their babies. Not all kitties have good temperaments. So the goal should be to produce kitties that do have great temperaments and are a pleasure to be around for the rest of their lives. When we use the word type in referring to a pedigree cat, it means their physical characteristics. What does that cat look like? For every breed that's recognized, there's a set of breed standard descriptions. This is a very detailed outline of how this pedigree cat should look. As a breeder, it's your responsibility to preserve the breed by using and producing cats that match the breed standard as close as possible. Every time we sway off of the breed standard, we're moving away from what really identifies that cat. A few generations of changes and, well, you've changed the look of that pedigree cat. When you start selecting cats for your breeding program, you want to choose them that are as close to breed standard as possible. There's no perfect kitty, which means you can compare the breed standard description to any cat, and it is almost impossible to find one that matches the breed description to a T. There's always some little flaws here and there. Participate in cat shows so that the judges can help you determine how close to breed standard your cat really is. If you're brand new to the breed, attend the cat shows as an exhibitor and listen to the judges while they explain the breed description of the particular breed you're interested in. Some of them get into really detailed verbal descriptions of their first place winners in the ring. Then you can visit that cat in the exhibition hall and have a closer look at it. Attending cat shows and participating in cat shows is just an excellent way to learn the physical characteristics of your chosen breed and to see what real champions look like. Now let's start thinking about housing our cats for breeding. Now here's a fun fact that a lot of people don't know. A good balance in a cattery is to have one male and at least 3 females. This will keep your working stud happy, healthy, and vibrant versus having just one mate. They're not like people. If we start breaking down housing your cats into a little more detail, you'll quickly discover that it's not a good idea to let your males cohabitate with your females. This will lead to unwanted pregnancies and maybe even teenage deliveries. Your male doesn't care how old the females are. If they're in heat, he will certainly mate with them. One of the books I read in the beginning, one of the first few paragraphs said, if you have a problem separating or segregating your male from your household or from other kitties, then breeding is probably not for you. I have to agree with that sentiment. If you plan on using your home to house your cats, you have to start thinking about that too. You need separate spaces for males, for your females, for your queens, for your quarantine area. All these things need to be taken into consideration. If you have a basement or a big garage that can be converted into a cattery, that's a great space to get started. There's some ideas online of how to plan out your cattery and design the space for the cats to be comfortable and stress-free. Finally, there's the education portion of starting a cattery. This part is ongoing for as long as you decide that you're going to be part of the cat breeding society. There's certainly some fundamental elements that everyone should know before they ever venture into being a cat breeder. Things such as housing, health, genetics, how to choose your cats, how to read pedigrees, facts about females in heat, estrus cycles, mating cats, pregnancies, gestation periods, birthing of kittens, and even raising and whelping kittens. What age should they go home? All of these are the fundamental factors that you should know before you ever decide to breed cats. There's also the element of expenses. It is not cheap to own a cattery. Cat food, litter, toys, veterinary expenses, cat trees, disinfectants, beds, birthing boxes, supplements, cat shows, travel, hotels. The list is endless of the expenses that you can incur when you breed cats. I think this is probably one of the biggest problems when it comes to breeding cats that sends people into the backyard breeder category, into that area where they're overwhelmed and they don't have the financial resources to take care of the cats and to give them the care that they need and take them to the vet and pay for surgeries or prescriptions or things that the cats need to be well and happy. Maybe they don't have the money to provide the space required, so they all get stuck into one small room, and this is a problem. This is a wrong way for your cats to live. It is of utmost importance that you have disposable income. You need to have the resources to be able to provide care in all senses of the word for the cats. The startup cost for a cattery is quite expensive. You see, you need to purchase your breeding animals, and rights for reproduction cost considerably more than if you were just buying a pet, sometimes double. And if you are going to make your male happy and provide him with at least 3 females, that can add up, like the cost of the cats to acquire to start your cattery. It may take a year or 2 years or sometimes 3 years before you ever recoup any of that money from the sale of your kittens. So you have to be prepared to support the cats and provide the care that they need until you can start recouping some of that money from the litters that you have. Now, don't quote me on this, but I think the average startup cost for a legitimate cattery that's actually going to run and operate is estimated to be between $10,000 and $20,000. And then the monthly expenses are, on average, are probably between $500 to $1,000, depending on the number of cats that you have in your breeding program. With those things in mind, let's go over a specific action plan that you can take to start your own breeding cattery. First off, you need to find yourself a mentor. Using the tips that we talked about, ask people to be your mentor. You may just have to ask them directly, go through some of the programs offered in the cat clubs, and at the bare minimum, find an online course on how to breed pedigree cats. You can find a very comprehensive one on our website, catbreedersensei.com. It covers so much of the fundamentals that you need and can absolutely use in your breeding program. Plan out your space, your time, and your budget. So know exactly how much money you have in disposable income, disposable cash that you can use to invest in your cattery, how much time you can commit to this new venture, and plan your space out accordingly. So based on how much space you have, you'll kind of get an idea of how many cats you can acquire for your cattery. So one of the biggest mistakes that new breeders make is they acquire a whole bunch of cats in too little amount of time. Keep in mind that a good start is 1 male to 3 females. That's a very good start for a new breeder. And then once those cats have become adults and they produce some kittens and you've actually raised and whelped several litters, you can think about adding more cats at that time if you choose to go that route. But know how much space you have to accommodate even that number of cats. You know, if you have a male, where's the male going to live? Where's your females going to live? How much space do you have? Do you have quarantine space? So you really need to plan the space out that you have and know what's going to work in the best way. You want your cats to be stress-free, happy, healthy, and have space that they can call their own. And then you need to research and network with other breeders. So this is something that should be continually being done on an ongoing basis. Once you get into the space and you start talking with other breeders, whether they are breeders of your specific breed or a completely different breed, it doesn't matter. You guys are like-minded, you have, similar goals. You should start talking to them so that you have people other than your mentor to kind of bounce ideas off of and, befriend in this community. It's nice to have people who you can talk to. And then you need to acquire your breeding cats. So this is a big feat for a lot of people. So you need to know your breed standard, know what to look for in a breeding animal, and then be familiar with the health risks that we talked about, the genetic testing and the health screening, and just pre-screen the mess out of the breeders and the cats that you would consider in your breeding program. Don't be in a rush to acquire any kitten. There is always going to be kittens available for breeding, especially in today's society when we can import from other countries and you don't get a lot of restrictions from people or resistance. You can just be very particular about where you acquire your breeding cats from. So take the time to research breeders. You should buy the breeder and then wait for the perfect cat from that breeder. That's kind of the approach that I like to suggest for people. Instead of finding a kitten that you think is awesome and then vetting that breeder, that's another route that you can take. I like to just monitor a breeder online for a couple of months and see, kind of where their goals are and what kind of kittens they produce and the look they have in their cattery, and see if their goals align with mine and their type that they produce is something that I want similar in my cattery. And then, just follow that person online and get to know them and talk to them and see if it's somebody that you want to work with long term. And then, wait for a kitten from that breeder. Your male cat is a staple to your cattery. So while you can be a little more forgiving on your females when it comes to type, should absolutely not falter when it comes to the male. He's going to be 50% of all of your offspring that comes out of your cattery. So really take your time when you are selecting that male for your breeding program. So if the idea of operating a cattery for your chosen pedigree cat excites you and fills your heart with passion, then by all means, pursue it and be part of the solution for protecting and preserving the wonderful breed of pedigree cat that you love so much. Don't be discouraged by the people that don't support you and who want to fuel you with negativity about being a cat breeder. Do the right thing, get the education that you need, and pursue it with all the passion that you have. While it certainly has its challenging moments, it's definitely very rewarding to be able to be a part of the production of healthy and happy kittens that are being taken care of for the rest of their lives, and that you're doing your part in protecting the breed. Thank you for listening to this episode of Cat Breeder Sensei Says. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss future episodes, which are published on Thursdays. You can also find us on the web at catbreedersensei.com. In Lesson 1 of Complete Guide to Breeding Cats, which is on our website, catbreedersensei.com, we actually go through in great detail the expenses required in running a cattery and raising a litter of kittens